Okay, so our first topic is variables, values, and scores. And these are just three terms that you want to know, and they mean something specific in the discipline of statistics. So first off, let's start with variable. We're going to use this term every single class period for the rest of the semester. So a variable, the word vary just means to differ. It's any property or characteristic that can vary across a population, that can be different across a population. And in other words, we might say, this is a quote from an official definition, a property of people or objects that takes on two or more values. So for example, well, human beings are divided by sex, right? We have mostly male and female. And then we have some other, people who are more androgynous that are more in between, but mostly male and female. So the variable would be sex. And then we'll talk about the values mostly being male or female. So let's look at this example. In what ways do these people vary? One way in which they vary or differ is height. They're all different heights. So a variable would be height. Another variable would be color. These human beings here are all different colors. Another variable is sex. You can see that they've drawn some of these odd balloon figures with more female kind of hips and some with more male kind of hips. So height, color, and sex would be the variables that we could be used to describe these individuals. It doesn't have to be people. The Saguaro Cactus in this image also have variables. They're different heights. They vary by the number of arms they have, by the number of spines, by the diameter at the base. There are many things we could measure or count on these cacti if this was our population of interest. Okay. So if you look around wherever you are right now, can you identify any object, any population that you think has different variables?
The class itself.
The class itself.
Yeah.
What's that variable that might be linked to the class?
Male, female.
All right. The students in this class differ by sex.
In age.
In age. Okay.
Height.
Height. Maybe year in college.
Weight.
Weight. Interest in statistics.
Skin tone.
Yeah. All kinds of variables on just the people in this class. Or we could use class as the population of interest and think about all the classes at Dene College. In what ways do the classes at Dene College? What variables might be linked to the classes at Dene College? Number of students in the class. Anything else? Another variable that might be linked to the classes at Dene College?
Course differences.
Like what?
There's like English courses, there's like psychology courses.
Subject matter. Let's call it subject matter. And he gave two examples of what we'll call values in a minute. He said English, psychology, math, science. Yeah. Maybe easy difficulty level. They probably differ by difficulty.
Would the location be a variable?
Sure, it would. We'll write these down in a minute. The location of the class, probably three options now: face-to-face, Zoom, or fully online. That's a variable. So location, we could say. I want to hear a response from one person online. Looking around your own environment, can you identify just one variable?
Pets, maybe, like dogs specifically.
Okay. Yeah,
Like
pets. Yeah. So, and in what way, what pets, can you name a variable that might be linked to pets? Something that would differ about pets?
Breed.
Okay, breed. Type of pets. Anything else that might vary across pets?
Um,
Size?
yeah, I was gonna say basically the same thing, like height, color, the sex,
Yeah.
um,
Level of aggression?
yeah.
Yeah, or docility?
Type of
Yeah, indoor, outdoor, or both. So we could have a, what we'll call a nominal variable there, indoor, outdoor, or both. Yeah. Okay, that's a pretty straightforward concept, right? So we'll talk about types of variables in a little while. But let's go on to talk about values. And I don't have much on these slides because I thought I'd write down your ideas. So the values of a variable are all the possible responses that could be for that variable. So I wrote down a variable, annual snowfall in Saline. I didn't write that full down. And the values could range, they would all be numbers, and they would range anywhere from, I don't know for sure, 0 to 30 inches maybe. I don't know how much snow you really get here, but it could be higher, I don't know. So those are the values, all the possible responses to that. Not all the actual responses, but the possible responses. So another variable that was mentioned was, I'm just going to hide this so that I have a little more room here. Another variable that was mentioned, what did we just hear just now? Can you tell me another variable, you guys? We had pets, and we said they differ by breed, pets. And pet breeds, I should say, pet breeds. And can, Shannon, you said this one, can you give me some of the values that might be possible for pet breeds? What you meant by that?
Height,
Well, we're talking about breeds, so the values would have to be types of breeds. And I don't know if you meant like dog breeds or if you meant like the type of animal, like cat, dog, hamster. What were you thinking of when you named that variable pet breeds?
I guess the different types of animals we have, like it could vary from, like what you said, cats, dogs.
I think that would be, maybe we should just put the word type. I think there's probably a biology word that would fit that better, but cat, dog, mouse, lizard. Okay. I don't know. Do people ever consider their horses pets? I don't think so, really, right? But we could name any number of animals here. I think I lived with all of them in my home at some point. All right, let's get another value, another variable. How about Sean Key? Look around you and name a variable for us. Or anyone if Sean is not.
Trees.
Okay, so you have to tell me, in order to have it be a variable, it's got to be something that can differ. So when you say trees, that I feel unclear.
Oh, okay. Say the pine trees. The variables would be types of pine trees. I'm sure there's various kinds.
Okay, types of pine trees, that's a
Yeah.
good thing for a variable. When you just said trees, you might have said tree heights, or you might have said tree types, or you might have said tree, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Number of trees, tree. Okay, so now we're clear, we have a good variable. And what values, what possible values, we can't name all of them. So I'm going to put an et cetera at the end, but if you were really doing this, you'd have to name all of them. So the types of pine trees, can you name a few values for that variable?
The types of pine trees would probably be more or less geographical. Like I'm sure there's a particular tree that grows up in, for instance, the Chuscas, and then there's a particular pine tree that would grow maybe like in more desert portion of the reservation. So I'm sure there's names to them, but I don't know. Maybe mountain pine trees and
Piñones,
um,
am I right about that?
uh,
Up by my cabin in Wisconsin, we had white pine, a lot of white pine. Can anyone else name
okay.
a few values?
The single needle and the double needle pine trees too. There's a difference between those two pine trees.
Okay. Anyone else know a type of pine tree? Balsam.
Ponderosa.
Oh, yeah, good. Ponderosa. So all of these are types of pine trees. So that's a good variable. Let's get another variable. Colin, can you name a variable, anything, and whatever object you choose, you can choose a variable that relates to humans. You can choose a variable that relates to organizations or something in nature. Okay, so,
Shoe brands?
okay, very good. The variable is shoe brands. And what values might be possible?
Like Converse, Vans.
Converse, Vans, Nike. I don't know if Reebok is still around. Yeah. All right, so you get the idea here. So now we have a couple of terms. We have variables. And you wouldn't just say the object, because if Colin had just said shoes, he would have had to be more clear in naming the variable because I don't know what to count. But when he said shoe brands, I knew, oh, I'm going to be looking at the label on it.
So you could actually change the one column just mentioned is instead of variable being shoe brands, you could go and make it athletic shoe brands.
He could be more specific, athletic shoe brands. That would be a good idea.
Because Converse, Vans, Nike, Reebok, that's what they are.
And I think being the more clear, the better. So yeah. So that was just an example, I know, but I mean, yeah, the more clear, the better. Or he might have said like shoe sizes, you know, and then we'd be having a numbered list. All right, so there's one more term before we move on, and that term is score. We usually think of a score as a number, and many of our scores will be numbers in this class, but they're not always a number. So it's just an individual's response or data point for a variable. So in our examples here, I don't know how much snowfall is, so I'm not going to do it. But I'm going to just choose a person for this pet type. And we have a little bit of a complicated variable because people might have more than one type of pet. But for the sake of this class, I'm going to call on someone and ask you to tell me your score. That is, name one type of pet that you have. So Cheryl, and if you have none, then none is a valid response. Cheryl, one type of pet that you have, what's your score?
I'm allergic to both cat and dog.
Okay. And how about Tiana, what's your score?
I have fish.
Fish, okay. And one more, Rufina, what's your score? Just one type of pet if you have any.
I have a husky dog.
Okay, so we have the idea of scores. So in this case, we would if we were going to name that column for score, we would have listed these names of the pets that people have. Let's do one more variable here. Let's do shoe size. And the values would range from, what's the smallest? I'm thinking of women's sizes, so we'll stay with women's on this. So let's just put women's shoe size here. Women's. What's the smallest? Maybe a 4? So what are some of the possible values for women's shoe size? What can you buy shoes in? Can you buy shoes in a 4 3/8?
No.
No. What's the next size up probably? Probably 4.5, 5, 5.5. I'm always jealous of people with that size because there's always a lot of selection. 6.5. 7.5. So we would continue this list, all the way up until the largest, which I don't know what it is, but let's say it's 13, the largest shoe size for women. All right. So now I'm going to ask, I'll put my own first, score. So for Suzanne, it is 8. Anyone else want to say their score, just so we get used to these terms? What's your score on the shoe size scale?
10.
Okay, we'll put a 10. Okay, what's your last initial?
Woman's size.
Okay, that's okay. We're gonna just pretend because we're just gathering data. It doesn't matter, just an example. Celeste, okay. C equals 8.5. Okay, so do you get the idea of this basic language, these 3 terms? Variables, values, scores. Okay, so I was going to look at our data sheet and look at some of these, but I think these are fundamental enough that we don't need to. All right, I gave a little bit of an example using my idea about video games making people irritable, kind of, from when my sons were young. And so I wrote, people who play 60 minutes of video games will be more irritable than those who play board games. And so in this case, the variable is irritability. That's what we're going to measure. That's the variable. Now we know what to measure. The values on the irritability scale range from 1 to 10. So they would include all of these values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If it's a good scale, it would include values in between those as well. And a score is one individual's value. So my example is Anna had an irritability score of 8 after playing video games for 1 hour. And let me turn this back on and do one little bit more with this, and then we're going to take the first quiz. So variable, here's some variables. Age, work hours per week, political party, and education level. And the values might look something like this. Age could be anywhere from 0 to 110. And I'm leaving this open, could be anywhere in there, because someone could be like, you know, even if your birthday was yesterday, you're still, you know, 21 and 321 and 1 day, right? So it could be anywhere in there. If you want to get really specific, you could say 21 and 8 hours. I mean, you could get down minutes to seconds, so it falls anywhere in there. Work hours per week, anywhere from 0 to 80, I suppose, would be the range I might look for. Political party, well, here we have to list them. An education level, this might be a way I'd organize it. Less than high school, some college, associate, bachelor, master, PhD, professional. Maybe I'd put all of those. We're not going to look at that last column just yet. And let's look at number 2. Carl earned a B on a statistics assignment. So what is the variable in this example?
Assignment.
I don't think so.
Grade.
Great. What are the possible values likely to be? A through F. And what is Carl's score? Of B. So this is the idea here. And here's one more that we'll do. On average, drivers passing through a small town exceeded the town's speed limit by 15 miles per hour. This is a trickier one, you guys. Maura, for example, was driving 38 miles per hour in the 25 mile per hour zone. So if you're online, I'm going to ask you at this time to put into the chat box to me what you think the variable values, possible values, and then Maura's score would be. So list all of those and use the terms. And those of you who are here, you can jot these down and I'll call on somebody. But online, I want you to put that in the chat box so I know that we're here, and I'm going to pull that up on my screen. little tricky, this one. Okay, Rufina, state that a little differently.
I think we're looking at the town speed, and then the possible would be Mora. And then what speed she was going, her score.
Okay. I think that your variable isn't right. I think that the 2 people who submitted, I don't think that your variable is right.
Okay.
So think about this a little bit more. Give it another minute or so here. So let me speak to that, in fact. So what I saw in a few answers is that the speed limit is the variable. But that doesn't change, does it? That stays the same. It doesn't, I mean, it might vary across districts, but that's not what we're looking at here.
Your variable would be your miles per hour.
It could be miles per hour, right? The speed that she's going. I think, so we put miles per hour as the variable is one way we could express it, right? And in that case, what would the range of possible values be if it's miles per hour? What's the slowest somebody could go, like 1 if they're pushing their car because it's broken, you know? And they could go how fast if someone has a really fast car? 120 or something ridiculous like that. That's the range, right? And then Morris scores 38. I think we could state this another way too. Because if you were gathering data for the police force and you were interested not in so much people's speeds, like what if she's driving 38, but the speed limit is 45? What if she's driving 38, but the speed limit is 40, right? What if we were interested in a difference between the speed limit, like how much people are speeding? Like we're not interested in her exact speed, we're interested in how much over the speed limit she's going. She's going, what, 13 over the speed limit. So that would be another way we might think about it. We put miles per hour different from the speed limit. That's another way we could look at it. And in that case, the range could still be 0 to 100, you know. And in that case, Morris' score would be 13. But it all depends on how we name the variable. So if you identify a variable, let's say you're given a score like you are here, 38 miles per hour, that's a score. Well, that means that that's probably going to be the variable, miles per hour, rather than speed limit. The speed limit is stable. It's not varying, fluctuating in this example. Okay.
So
Yes.
what's your answer on that? That's what I would like to know. Because you're giving us various possibilities.
Very good. Yeah. So what is the correct answer? Well, first off, I wouldn't put a question with that kind of ambiguity, but the correct answer in reality is whatever the person who's analyzing it decides to present. And so I would say if I was analyzing this for, like, who's asking me to do the analysis? If it's the police force and what they're interested in is speeding, I would probably do the subtraction and say 15 miles per hour, or I might even take it to a more complex level and say, what percent over the speed limit are they going? Because doing 10 over the speed limit in a 25 mile per hour zone is different, is maybe more excessive than doing 10 over in a 55 mph zone, you see. So I might even, so it would depend on who I'm doing the analysis for and what they wanted to know. Now, if we were just interested in straight up speeds, let's say it's this circle drive and we just don't want people going that fast, I might just do miles per hour. The answer depends on the question that was asked. Does that make sense, Lyle?
Yeah, so you put it in it that way, all of our answers are going to be the same. Because we can look at your variable from different angles, from different possibilities.
Very good. Yes, you're correct. But if you put speed limit, I would have to say it's wrong because that is not what's varying in this problem. It's something to do with the speed of the drivers, not the speed limit. So that one I would have to say is wrong. Nothing in this problem indicates variation in the speed limit. All right. In this example, let's have you again, a few of you name the variable values and score. Put it in the chat if you're joining us remotely. Good, Shannon. See at least one more person online name this variable. Good. All right. What is the name? Very good. Correct, Tiana. What is the name of this variable, Celeste? Oh, Tiana, be more specific actually in your naming your variable. So what is it? What month? The birth month, right? Birth month. You have to be that clear because if you just put months down, I don't know what we're doing. Okay, so the possible values?
You can sort it by letters or by numbers,
Sure.
1 to 12 or January to December.
Some representation of the month, January, February, March, April, etc. And they could be numbers or they could be abbreviations. It could be in a different language. Some representation of the month. And then this score is July. How happy are you on average on a 10-point scale ranging from 0, not at all happy, to 10, extremely happy? And so take a moment to name the variable, list or identify the possible values, and provide your own score. Sean, be more specific. What specific emotion are we measuring here? You want to be as specific as possible. Good. Very good, Tiana. Shannon looks really good. And here in this classroom, Virgie, how do you name this variable?
How happy are you?
Okay, and so let's give it one word name, a noun. Happiness. I think that would be a good precise variable name.